for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and I thank all of you for having me here. And I thank Pastor for the introduction which you so graciously did for me. So today's topic is the meaning of life, vanity versus purpose. So we all, I'm sure, at some point or the other in our life, we would have had certain questions in our mind, like what is the meaning of this life? What is the purpose of this life? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where I'm going? What will happen after death? So I think all of us must have come across certain questions like this. Or why am I existing? What is the purpose of my life? What, is there any meaning to this toil, or is there any meaning to the work that I'm doing? So all of us live for something or the other. We some have dreams and passions which are the driving force of their lives. And it is true that each and every one of us has certain goal or certain desire in our heart which we are living for. It becomes the sole purpose of our life. And the statistical research shows that people who are driven with a purpose live a longer life than people who find life meaningless. So we are meant to find purpose in our life. And everyone longs for it. Everyone longs to understand the meaning of life. Everyone longs to understand the purpose of their life. So we may hear many a times that the purpose of the life is to be happy, just be merry and do whatever you like. And many people live their lives in the pursuit of happiness. They are searching after happiness all their lives. And we also see that everyone is in the pursuit of something or the other in their lives, whether it may be success, whether it may be fame, whether it may be achievements, whether it may be power, whether it may be position, money, recognition. We are all running after something or the other in this life. Something which we think that will bring us great satisfaction, something that will bring us contentment that yes, I have achieved something in this life. But the funny thing about satisfaction is that we humans are never completely satisfied. We have so many wants and desires right from the beginning of our lives. If we remember our childhood, it was always one candy or the other, it was always one toy or the other. And when our heart was fixed on one toy, and we pleaded and cried also in front of our parents to have it, but after having it, the satisfaction of it lasts only for so much time. And after that, we wanted the next thing. And after that, our hearts were behind the next thing. And then same happened as the thing as we started growing. We with everything, with maybe relationships, with maybe success in career and achievements. We always are wanting something, but when we achieve that, we are wanting the next thing. We are always running after something or the other. We are never having the contentment. Even if you talk about money, like how much money is enough money? The person who is earning 20,000 will want a 50,000 per month job. Person who is having a 50,000 job will want a 1 lakh per month job. Person who is having 1 lakh will want a 2 lakh job. So even the billionaires and the millionaires will want to earn more and to become the richest people in the earth. Have we ever seen anyone in our life who says that I have enough money for my life, I will not work anymore? Nobody. So even the people who have so much, who are filthy rich, who have so much money that they don't know how to spend it in their entire lifetime, but they will still not stop accumulating more and more and more. Because that is how the human heart is. Jeremiah 17:9 says that the human heart is it's deceitful above all things, and it's beyond cure. We can't cure the human heart that keeps craving for more and more and more and more. And this nature of humankind is also exploited by consumerism, and it's also exploited by the makers of social media as well. Like by consumerism, the people who are making advertisements know exactly how to catch our attention. So they will show you that this is what you need in your life. This is what is going to satisfy you. This is what is going to give you happiness. But as soon as we have that thing and the satisfaction remains only for a certain while, next thing you're craving for something else. Same with social media, you just can't stop scrolling because they know how to keep your attention. So, verse says in Ecclesiastes 1:8, the eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. The eye never has enough of seeing. We want more and more and more. We want to see more and more and more. And the ear never has its fill of hearing. So we always want something new. We always want something new. We are insatiable. We are never content as humans. So this verse which I quoted is from a book called the Book of Ecclesiastes, which is one of the wisdom books in the Bible. And the author of this book is King Solomon. So what do we know about King Solomon? Who is King Solomon? Huh? He is the wisest man. Yes. He was known as the wisest man. Anything else you all know about, you would like to share about King Solomon? Okay. So we know King Solomon as the one who had it all. He was the wisest man. He had lots of fame, power, success. He had royalty because he himself was king. He had lots of everything. He had entertainment, he had pleasure, he had all sorts of things. He was the owner of it all. And he's sharing his wisdom in the book of Ecclesiastes. The whole book of Ecclesiastes is trying to find the meaning of life in the life under the sun. That is the life on earth. And he's trying to seek for meaning in everything. And let's hear it from the man who had it all. And he says in Ecclesiastes 1 2, vanity, vanity, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Again, another translation is meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless. So the Hebrew word used over here for vanity is evel, which means vapor. So everything is like a vapor. You know that we cannot grasp vapor in our hands. So because we may see smoke, but we cannot grasp it in our hands because nothing will be left in our hands. So it's like everything in this life is like that. Well, you think it is something great, but when you grasp it, there's nothing left in your hands. So he's saying that everything is vanity, everything is vain. All the pursuits that we have in our life are in vain. All the things that we are running after in this life, in this human life under the sun, they are all vain, they are all meaningless, he's saying. So he makes a list of all things that are vain, that are meaningless. So we'll see that list in chapters 1 to 4. So he's saying this is meaningless, that is meaningless. And he's saying that I, as a seeker, have tried them all. So you see, this is the king who was one of the richest kings. And he was the wisest man because he had asked God for the gift of wisdom. And he had lots of everything. He accumulated gold, he accumulated silver, he had a lot of wives, he had a lot of pleasure, he had a lot of music, and he had a lot of art and recreational works as well. So there's nothing that he did not have. You name it and he had, according to that word. Of course, he did not have mobile and technology. But according to that word, you name it and he had it. So that was that. So he makes a list of all the things that are vain or meaningless. So the first thing he says is work and toil is vanity. And this is for the workaholic. He says, what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? He says that in verse 3 of the first chapter. So he's saying that we toil and we do work and everything. And if we keep on doing it and doing it and doing it to gain something, but in after all, we see that it is meaningless. So if we look at it, we may feel that this is from a pessimistic worldview. Like Solomon is being very pessimistic over there. But then if we see, when we come to the conclusion, we understand the true meaning of all his words. So we'll just go with it for now. So he's saying that work and toil is meaningless. Like he's seeing that he is someone who has done everything And he's saying that everything that I have achieved will be one day forgotten. And he's saying everything that I have accumulated with my hard work will be passed on to someone else. That is what he says. So then all of this pursuit is meaningless. This is like for those who are so much indulged in work that they forget the balance of life, that they forget that there is a family life, or they forget that there is anything apart from being from working. So it is like the pursuit of work, which you're toiling so much, doing so much hard work for what? The result is meaningless. It's vanity. And the second thing he's saying is in verse 4 is success is vanity. Success is also meaningless. Why he's saying that? The verse says that a generation comes and a generation goes, but the earth remains forever. And if you see in Psalm 103, 15 and 16 says that, as for the man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field, but the wind passes over it and it is gone, and the place remembers it no more. So, like the flower of the field, which has a life only for one day, when it blooms, it flourishes, and we can see its beauty. But once it is blown with the wind, it's gone, and the place remembers it no more because new people come. That's what Solomon is saying. New plants come. That's what Solomon is also saying, that we are out of so many billion people, we are just like a flow. We are coming and we are going. And even if we are achieving something, only few people are remembered in this world. Everyone else is just coming and going, and the world is not remembering them anymore. So, what is the use of all this success that we are accumulating? For whom are we doing all this? Then, in the third point, he says is meaningless in verse 18 is that accumulation of wisdom and knowledge is also meaningless. He's saying. So, he's saying that with much wisdom comes sorrow, and with much knowledge comes grief. So, this is the man who was known as the wisest man in the world, and he had collected knowledge, but yet he is saying that the collection of knowledge seems to be meaningless. But that doesn't mean, he doesn't say that you should live in folly. He doesn't mean that you should live in foolishness. He says wisdom is still better than foolishness, but still all this collection of wisdom is again one meaningless thing. Then in the fourth point, which he's saying in chapter 2, from verses 1 to 11, that all, first he, in chapter 1, he is a seeker of work. So he's doing, he's trying to find the meaning of life in work and toil and hard work. So he comes to the conclusion that it is meaningless. Then in chapter 2, he's exploring all kinds of pleasure. So he says that in chapter 2, verse 1 says that I said to myself, come now, I will test with you the pleasure to find out what is good. So now he begins his search with pleasure. And that also has proved to be meaningless. So work is meaningless, pleasure is also meaningless, same. So in verses 1 to 11, it is described all the pleasures that he indulged in. It talks about wine, art, gardens, music, women, servants, gold and silver possessions. He calls them all the delights of a man's heart. So he has had, as a king, an access to all things possible that could bring him pleasure, all things possible that could bring a man delight. He had access to all of them as a king. And verses 10 to 11 says that I denied myself nothing that my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. And yet he says everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. So if you see, he was in a very dangerous state where he was denying himself nothing, and we are not supposed to live in that kind of unrestrained pleasure. But he's saying even after trying everything, he says that everything was meaningless like a chasing after the wind. So we saw that the root word hevel, vanity means vapor. So he's saying it's like a chasing after the wind. So he's again building on the same concept of how vanity is a vapor. It's like you're chasing after the wind, nothing will come in your hand. You can't hold wind, right? Like that, you can't get a hold of any of these things. They are just like an appearance. So he's saying that all these things are meaningless. Again, he's saying that money and possessions are meaningless. He's saying that I have gathered so much money, so much gold and silver, more than anyone else in this world has gathered. But that also does not bring him any happiness. And then he goes on to say in chapter 9 that death is the great equalizer. Whether you are poor or rich, whichever caste you are, whichever religion you are, whichever race you all are going to face death. So he's saying that finally, whatever you do in life, no matter whether you live a good life or whether you live a bad life, every one of us is going to go through death. So then he's saying that what is the meaning of life if everyone is going to have the same fate of death? And then he says, as a person who has tried it all, that all these things are meaningless, but they are meaningless without God. So the conclusion of his book is not that everything is vain, 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 vain. The conclusion of his book is that everything in this life without God is vain. Everything in the life under the sun without having God in our lives is vain. The pursuit of happiness without God is vain. That is what he comes to. We see that everyone who tries to find happiness cannot find happiness because happiness is not to be found by means of finding happiness. Happiness is a byproduct of finding God. So we may find happiness in small things in life, but when that pleasure has gone, when we are no longer content with that thing, then the void grows more larger than it was. So all of us have a void in our lives. Why do we keep running after all these things as we discussed? Why we are always in constant search? Why we are always in constant search of gratification or pleasure or satisfaction? Because we have a void in our lives, in our hearts and in our lives, and that is the God void. But humankind sorts to replace that void and fill various other things in it, like money, fame, the pursuit of success and work. But no other person or thing can fill that void as properly as God. And when we try to fill that void with other temporary things, when the happiness of that thing is over, then the void only grows bigger rather than being content. But when God fills the void of our heart, then we are truly content. So, in conclusion of the whole book, he comes to the last chapter of Ecclesiastes 12, and he says in verse 1 that remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, before the years approach when you say, I find no pleasure. So he's saying all these things that you run after in life, they are not going to bring you any pleasure. They might bring you a temporary pleasure, but they are not going to bring you any satisfaction or add any meaning to your life unless you remember your creator, unless you do things in life with meaning which comes from the creator. So this is all about vanity and purpose. There are many of us who live our lives in vanity, all our lives, just running after something without the pursuit of God, without keeping God as the center of our lives. And if we do so, our whole lives is going to end up as a meaningless space, as a meaningless block. But if we keep God as the center of our lives in everything that we do, that He is who is going to fill our hearts with contentment, satisfaction, joy, and happiness. And He is the one who is going to add meaning to our lives. He is the one who is going to add purpose to our lives. Why does God define our purpose? Why can't I define my purpose? Because it is the creator who knows the purpose. Like if I have a watch or a phone, this I the user cannot define the purpose of the phone. The phone itself cannot define the user of the phone. But the creator who has made the phone, he is the person who can define the purpose of it. or any created matter for that matter, whichever thing is created is defined, the use of that, the purpose of that thing is defined by the creator. A watchmaker will tell you that the purpose of the watch is to tell you time. In the same way, all of us have been created by one creator, and he is the one who will define our purpose. It is not something that the world tells us, the culture tells us. Our purpose in life is what our creator has defined for us, what he has made us to do. And what he has made us to do is not blind pursuit of the worldly things, but rather it is pursuit of God. Now in Ecclesiastes 12:1, Solomon says, remember your creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come. That is very different from the worldview which we hear. So when we are children, if it is a time to play and it is a time to enjoy. When we grow into young adults, it's a time to pursue our career. When we grow young, more elder than that, when a certain maturity comes, then we are pursuing marriage or a partner. And after that, we are pursuing a strong career, a position in our lives. And after that, after everything is over, is when a time comes for religiousness. That is the world culture, right? That this time is for play, this time is for family life, this time is for study, this time is for career. And finally, when you come to your age, when you have attained all things, then you come for then you come to God for religiousness or for peace. Even in many cultures, even in our country, it's like you attain salvation at the end of your life when you have attained all things and you give up everything. When you have enjoyed everything, then you give up everything and come and then attain a life of peace and salvation. But that is not how Bible talks about. It is not when we should not remember God when we are not capable of doing anything, but rather we should give our first and our best to God, the first and best of our lives as well. So he says that remember your creator in the days of your youth. Many Christians I've heard who say that I will first earn, I will first be something, and I will first do my career, settle my life, and then I will serve God. So this is what a common worldview everyone has. There is a time for it, it's later in life after I pursue all the various pursuits of my life. But this is not what the wisest man on earth said. He said, remember your creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come. Because the vigor that we have as youth, the passion that we have as youth, the desire to do something that we have as youth, that we won't have in our old age. So we need to give God the best and the first of it. And he says he has described old age in a very poetic form. If you read the next few verses in 12, chapter 12, he says, before your faculties, in short, I will say that it means that before your mental and physical faculties are give up, before you become weak, before your vigor becomes less, before you your hearing or your eyesight becomes faint. Those are the years which you need to give to God in service. Those are the years which you need to be in pursuit of God. Before you have the desire to, before you lose all your desires, it says that you should come to the Lord before you say to yourself that I don't find pleasure in the world. So that stage is also going to come. And you will find no meaning in life when you will find no pleasure in the things of the earth. And before all our mental and physical faculties are worn down, before we lose all our power, all our vigor and passion, that is the time when we need to remember our Creator in the days of our youth. And then he comes to the conclusion of all matters. In Ecclesiastes 12:13, he says, Now that all has been heard, here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all men. So he is defining the purpose of your life. These all things are vanity without God. But if you fear God, and here the fear of God is not the fear as the world defines fear. Here the fear of God is when you live in accordance with God's will and his commands. So he's saying, make your life right with God. All these things will come and go in your life and they will not give you satisfaction. But make your life and your heart right with God and keep his commands. And this is the duty of all men. This is the purpose of all humans. If we know, if or we have heard about the Westminster Shorter Catechism, it was a series of questions which was approved by the British Parliament for like a manual for children. So in that short catechism, the first question was, what is the chief end of man? The chief end means what is the main purpose of man's life? So the answer was, man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. So our main purpose in life is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. God doesn't want us to have sorrowful or a life full of suffering. Of course, he has both in balance for us. But he is not asking us to give up all the pleasures of life or to give up all the joy of life. Rather, Jesus says that I have come to give you life and life in all its fullness. I have come to give you. So in God, we have everything, whether it is joy or sorrow, in Him we are satisfied, and in Him we have the fullness of life. We have been created for God. We have not been created to become our own gods, or we have not been created to make something else our own God. But we have been created for God. We have been created to glorify Him, to worship Him, to honor Him, to exalt Him, to magnify Him. The purpose of our life is all about God. It is not all about ourselves, but the purpose of life is all about God. So, what is the purpose of life? It is to live to God's glory and to receive our joy in Him. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ so that we can do good things that He had planned for us long ago. He has created us in Him so that we can do good things. So He is our creator and He knows our purpose. And we think we if we see we humans are worshippers of something or the other. All the humans on the earth are worshippers of something or the other. We are created in such a way that our mind worships something or the other. So for believers, we worship God. If we do not know God, we are worshipping something. Person running after money is worshipping money. The person running after fame is worshipping fame. The person who thinks I need no God, I am sufficient for myself, is worshipping himself or herself. But we are all worshipping something or the other because we are created in that. So the question is, who are we worshipping today? Who is the purpose of our lives? Are we worshipping ourselves? Are we worshipping success? Are we worshipping money? Are we worshipping some people? Or are we worshipping any other idols? Or are we worshipping God? Our purpose is defined by God, and our first and foremost purpose in our lives is to know God and is to live a life worthy of God and is to make our lives as living sacrifices for Him. It is to spread the joy of God with everyone, and it is to know that God has come down in human form for us so that we could have a relationship with Him. The purpose of our life is to know Jesus, to know Him as our personal Savior, to know Him that there is completeness of our life in Him. The purpose of our life is to have a loving relationship with Him. And the purpose of our life is to spread this joy which we receive from Him to everyone else. Once we know who we are in Christ, that will define our purpose in life for us. So we are the children of God. When we accept Christ as our Savior, we are the children of God. And then, as children of God, our purpose is to be ambassadors of God everywhere we go, to be representatives of God everywhere we go. So the purpose of our life is not all these things under the sun, which we think are so important because, as Solomon said, there's the one who had it all, that they will all come and they will all go. But the purpose, the only thing that will remain eternal is God's love for us and our love for Him. So we need to serve God in everything that we do. And it is not a pessimistic book that we don't need to do any of these things above, or we don't need to go for any of these things above, or we should just give up and sit at home. It's not like that. But it is that in everything that we do, we keep God as the center. Whether it is work, whether it is pleasure, whether it is earning, whether it is success, in whatever we do in our lives, the purpose would be that I am working for the glory of God. I am enjoying for the glory of God. I am earning for the glory of God. I am achieving something for the glory of God. Only when that is our goal will our life have meaning and purpose. Because our purpose is to glorify God. First Corinthians 10:31 says, whether I eat or drink or whatever I do it for the glory of God. Whether you drink or eat or whatever you do it for the glory of God. Even in small things like eating and drinking, and in every single thing we do it for the glory of God. That is when in whatever we do, we will find fulfillment. We will find fulfillment in work, not when we are workaholics, but when we keep God as the center of our work. We will find fulfillment in pleasure, not when we play, when we enjoy pleasure without restraint, but when we do it within the limits which God has set. We will enjoy even in our successes when the focus of our success is not to glorify ourselves, but to glorify God. So in everything we do, our purpose should be to glorify God. And knowing who we are to God and discovering our relationship with God is the purpose of our life. So let us all think about where we stand with God today. Is our heart right with God? The purpose for which our Creator has created us. Are we true to that purpose? There is one more story I would like to share with you, and that is of a queen. So till now we talked about a king, it was King Solomon, and now I want to talk to you about a queen, that is Queen Esther. So Queen Esther was a queen in the. She was a Jewish lady, but she was married to a non-Jewish king. And this king had passed a degree because of the influence of his one of his officials, wicked officials, kill all the Jews. And Mordecai, her cousin, came to her and said to her that it is your duty as queen and as a Jewish lady to save all your people from this decree, to save their lives. And she said, how can I go and request the queen, the king? Because I cannot even go into his presence without his permission. So how can I go and request the king? But Mordecai says to her, if you do not stand up now, God will find someone else to bring deliverance. But who knows? You have been born for a time such as this. So he says, who knows? God has brought you to royalty for a time just as this. And this is true for our lives also. Esther was born in that setting, in that timing. Esther came to royalty so that she could save the Jewish people. We also, wherever we are, in whichever timing, in whichever age, in whichever society, whichever family we are born just for a time such as this. Wherever we are to create an impact, wherever we are is assigned to us to do something for God. We have to find that purpose, what God has assigned us for us to do over there. But we are truly born for a time such as this. even in today's age, why we were not born 2000 years back, why we are born today. There is a purpose behind our life. We have been born, and we will definitely find our specific purpose in God when we rely upon Him, when we read His Word, when we spend time with Him, when we pray with Him. We will definitely realize our purpose. So, our first main purpose is to know God, to have a relationship with Him, to live as children of God, to live as image bearers, to live as ambassadors of Christ, to put Him as the center of each and every area of our life. That is our main purpose. And then the specific purpose of our life will be revealed to us. Like Queen Esther's purpose was revealed to her, our specific purpose of our life will be revealed to us when we continue in communion with our God, in close communion with God, when we continue and we submit our will to Him. When we submit our will to Him, like when Esther finally made the decision, she said, I am going to go to the king. And the decree was, if anyone comes to the king's inner court without his permission, they would die. They would be, even if they were royalty. But she said, if I perish, I perish, but I will go. So, our conviction should also be in that manner, that whatever God has called us to do, I will submit to God's will, and God will lift us up wherever we are, because He has already planned what He wants us to do. What is our purpose in our life? Why we are here? Why we are living in this place? Why we are not in some other place? Because we are already, set purpose is already there for our lives. We are not needed anywhere else. We are needed here where we are. Because there is a purpose, we need to do something over here. And that we will understand when we spend it. So I pray and I ask God that all of us, including me, would be aligned with our main purpose of our life, that is to cherish God in everything as our main person in life. And the second thing is to find our specific purpose of our life by spending time with. So let us all pray about this and reflect about it, and let make ourselves right with God, our hearts right with God, and align our purposes with Him according to what He has.